By the way, I heard like Jim Edmonds said something on. I'm not trying to pick on Jimmy, but I'm sort of like now into this thing. I admit it, where I'm like, and I'm not going to go overboard with it. I maybe have a little bit today, but it annoyed me. Where I'm trying to be, they're trying to tell me that Miles Michaelis didn't pitch all that bad. I just can't. No sale. I'm the voice of the fan. That's a cliche. I'm kind of joking, but in a way I am. Someone's got to say, in the media's got to say, come on. I like you, dude. It's nonsense. Let's go. Stop that. So Jimmy Edmonds last night, I was really surprised by what I heard early in the game. After Steven Matz got roughed up, Chip Carey was talking about, the Cardinals starting pitching off to a rough start, blah blah blah, which is fine. He noted it at least. And Jimmy's like, well, that's to be expected. Pitchers come out of spring training and they're not always really ready to go, and that's true of like all these teams. I think every team struggles to pitch coming out of spring training. You had a World Baseball Classic. So listen, I'm paraphrasing. His message was, it's not a big deal. This is to be expected, because it's true of like a lot of these teams. And that's what I'm talking about. No, it isn't. Okay. Going in today, listen to these starting rotation ERAs going into today. So I don't know whatever happens or happened or will happen tonight. These numbers don't reflect that. Going into today, Minnesota, their starting pitchers had a 1.03 ERA. The Dodgers 1.80. Tampa Bay 2.08. Milwaukee 2.22. The Kansas City Royals 2.84. Then in somewhere in the ERA between like 3 and 3.90, you had the Yankees, the Angels, the Braves, Mariners, Marlins, Giants, Padres, White Sox, Cubs. Cubs were actually about 420. But no, not all the teams are going through this. So why are the Cardinals doing so poorly when you see these lesser teams? And Busch Stadium is supposed to be helpful to their pitchers. Why? And again, I know it's only 5 or 6 games. I know. But as looking at the early trends, it seems to me that a lot of teams have pretty damn good rotations in the first week or so of the season. So again, let's just quit trying to make excuses. It's not necessary. Unless somebody's watching a game who really just doesn't care about performance or ERA or any of that stuff, and it's fine, man. Knock yourself out. Watch what makes you happy. Watch it the way you want to watch it. I get it. But the constant excuses just being made to somehow try to gloss over bad performances, it's just old, man. It's just really old.
You mentioned earlier in the show, it's an educated audience. You don't have to talk down to them. You don't have to try to mask it. Even we got a couple texters point out, the pitchers were up in the zone. They just weren't good, period.
That's all you got to say. It's not a personal attack.
Right.
That's the thing that drove me nuts about Mike Shildt, and now I'm hearing it a lot, like just in terms of the broadcasts. It's like, Shilty, you come out here every night or every other night or whenever something's bad, and everybody listens to me knows I used to go nuts over this. I apologize. Hopefully that was entertaining, because me going off like some kind of firecrackers can be funny to some. But Shilty would come out, and they had a bad series. They did a lot of things poorly, whatever, and it happens. But he'd come out, and he would try to tell the people who watched the game that they didn't really see what they saw. What? I mean, do you think people are morons? I mean, it's actually disrespectful to your fan base. Give them some credit for knowing what's up, Yeah. Oh, I thought, hey, we beat the Marlins. Well, what the hell does that have to do with you getting clubbed over the head by, say, the Mets? Nothing. What, we're supposed to give a parade because you beat the Marlins? I'll never remember that. Or I'll never forget that. Shilty coming out and saying,
that's right, yeah.
Oh, we just swept the Marlins. Wow. Can we get Rob Manfred in here to give the boys a trophy or something? So, anyway, I'm not going to talk about it anymore the rest of the show. Thanks for tolerating me. I just had to vent because it's driving me nuts. Jim Hewer, I missed this today because I was prepping and writing and doing all kinds of things. You told me that Tommy Edman had was it a weak throw?
It was a weak throw. First inning, Acuna's the first batter. He grounds it between short and third, and it was not completely in the hole, but it was in that direction. So Tommy Edman's got to go to his right, and he grabs the ball, and then when he throws it to first, it is a weak throw and bounces. Gosh, I want to say at least it felt like 5 feet from first base before it bounced and got to Paul Goldschmidt. Runner was safe. Look, Acuna's a fast runner, but what alarmed me, Bernie, it just wasn't anything on the throw. It was a very soft throw for a guy throwing from that position. It wasn't totally off balance. He had some time to get something behind it. There was nothing on it. And I mentioned to keep an eye on this. We know we asked Derek Gould about it, and he felt that, he had a soft throw in spring, and then it seemed like to rectify itself. This one was just a bad throw that I went, are we going to have to keep an eye on this a little bit more, that maybe there is a problem with the arm. It was just a throw when you went, at least I did, I just went, that's awful. That was not a good attempt of a throw. And I don't know. Again, something to keep an eye on. It was the very first one. I didn't notice anything the rest of the game that stood out, but I was in and out of the game after that point later on. But that very first batter, and it allowed Acuna to get on base. Guess what? He steals second. They score runs just because he gets on base. He was dynamite this series. But that at least drew my attention at it. At least keep another eye on that.
No, and it is something to monitor, because one of the concerns about Tommy, and this is fair, and it's not criticism at all, so it should not be taken as such, but dynamic second baseman, when you play second, although he covered more ground than most second basemen, he's fantastic there, but he's been a really good shortstop. However, it's a much more demanding position, and I know one of the questions we had when Marmol sort of turned the corner and indeed made him the full-time shortstop because DeYoung was just awful, and they sent him to Memphis. And Edman played really well, but I remember at the time, and I thought the people that made the point were, being fair, and I think they were being their observations were legitimate. No one's looking to criticize Tom Edman. That's not what this is about. But it's such a demanding position, and even playing second base, Tommy Edman tended to just go through these stretches where you could just tell he was really worn out. And the question is, he plays a full season at shortstop. Is he going to be able to handle it physically without it impact, maybe the fatigue factor or whatever, impacting his performance? And I think that's a fair question and an interesting question and a legit question. It's not looking for negatives. It's just being realistic. And and so first of all, his whole routine is cut short, and it's interrupted because he played in the WBC for Korea. So that didn't do him any favors. And then he comes back, and I know our friends at KMOX mentioned one of the spring training games pretty late in the stages of camp that he had a problem throwing the ball. And you mentioned we had Derek Gould on 7 days later, and he just said, he did. It was like one throw where you went like, whoa, but he was getting his footwork ready, and he sharpened it up. Everything seems to be fine, and I definitely believe Derek. But now I didn't see this play because you said it happened in the first inning, and I had not yet to put the game on, so that explains why. But it's something to monitor. I mean, I don't think there's any wrong with saying it's something to monitor. So
keep an eye on it. Bob Ramsey just texted me, said he saw the same thing that I was speaking of. So I mean, it's just odd. It was like, wow, first inning, you think you'd zip it across. There was just nothing on that throw. So, and he hasn't had a day off yet. He keeps playing. Well, maybe we should get somebody else a chance to. Everybody else seems to get a day off. So,
and that's always been a kind of a challenge for Cardinals managers because they value him as they should. I mean, he played for Matheny, he played for Shildt, he's playing for Marmol, and he's so good defensively. And if you're going by statistics, like Bill James, for example, I go to him for this. Tommy Edman over the past 2 seasons has been the best base runner in baseball. No one advances more extra bases on batted balls. I'm not talking about, well, you hit a double, that means, oh, well, man, he went to second. Well, he should have. It's a double. It's like a legitimate double. I'm talking about moving up on the base paths. I'm talking about stretching, getting from first to third on a single, first to home on a double, so on and so forth. And he also, last year, was ridiculous in terms of his success rate in stealing bases. Best base runner in baseball the last 2 seasons. And he still has that in him. Although nothing much has been happening there so far this season. But again, it's early. So with his defense and base running, and his switch hitting ability, not that he's great from the left side, but he was a little better last year. He's a very valuable guy. So I can understand why they would want to, ride him and ride him and ride him. But yeah, you got to be a little careful there. And that's what hurts about management's insistence on, sticking with Paul DeJong. And listen, Taylor Motter, that was cool last night. It's one thing I didn't mention. It's a little note that's really cool. Mike Petrillo, who's a friend of the show, MLB.com, he put a thing on Twitter, and he's all over this stuff. Through last night, the hardest hit ball in the major leagues, the first nearly week of Major League Baseball in 2023, hardest hit ball was by Taylor Motter last night when he doubled.
Wow.
That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's like 114 miles an hour or whatever. So Motter's an underdog guy. Yeah, I was sort of making fun of this scrapper thing. Sometimes I'm a jerk, I admit it. But I don't know if he can play shortstop, though. I mean, I'm just being honest. He didn't play all that much in the minors. He doesn't seem like a super range guy. So that's why they keep running Tommy Edman out there.
It does bring up some questions. I do know this. Motter did make a nice scoop on that short hop the second he made the play.
He did. Like I said, I good for him. I'm happy for him. And I don't know what's going to happen when Paul DeJong completes his rehab assignment, which I think begins later this week down in Class A, just so he can be close to the Jupiter complex to get a lot of other work in. And again, if Paul DeJong comes back to this club and hits, fine, because he is a good shortstop. And I'll never take that away from him. I'll never be so unfair because the situation is so kind of silly that I'm going to try to pretend he's not a good shortstop defensively, because he is. So at least when DeJong comes up, and people don't want to hear this, and I get you, I feel you. If he gets healthy enough to come up, I would assume at least he'll be able to play shortstop for him and give Tommy Edman the occasional day off, because if you run Tommy Edman to the ground, you're not only going to weaken him defensively, and it's going to put more strain on that arm, but I don't have numbers in front of me, but you know me, I study everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm insane. I'm totally nuts. So I study everything, and there's always these phases he goes through where the offense just dries up, and it's like, wow, and a lot of it, I believe, just has to do with just kind of running the dude into the ground. I mean, he's got incredible energy, but even those guys get tired,
Look, that's what has hurt him every time. It's like, well, we just kept running him out there. You got to give him a day, got to give him a breather, otherwise those guys get run down. I mean, that goes without saying. Let's see how they approach it this weekend. Hopefully he gets at least one day off. I know tomorrow's a day off, but everybody else has gotten their day. So be smart about it.
And we can talk about this tomorrow or even Friday, but actually maybe tomorrow we'll go into a deeper look at Milwaukee, and I think that's been a lot of fun. By the way, we were talking about baseball new rules, and if anybody wants to read it, I did a piece on that after talking about it at length earlier this week on the show. I wrote a piece about that for scoops@dannymac.com and updated some of the statistics. I saw some stuff from CBS Sports, our friends over there. This was actually this was tweeted very late last night. There have been 3,682 days over the last 35 seasons on which at least 14 games were played. The average time of the game today yesterday, 2 hours and 33 minutes was the shortest out of any of them. Now think about that. 3,682 days over the last 35 seasons when there were 14 games on the schedule. 3,682 days. And the average time of the games, the 14 games yesterday, 2 hours, 33 minutes, was the shortest among those 3,682 days. Now, that's a stat.
That puts a lot of perspective on it. It's so nice. We said it. By the way, that Twins Marlins game was 1 hour and 57 minutes.
I know. How about that, right?
Alcantara and Maeda started. Those pitching staffs have been very good. You gave the ERA numbers. Those are among the best in baseball right now. But an hour and 57 minutes, bang, done, over with. Everybody go home and get ready for the next day.
According to StatCast, here's another one. I just like monitoring this because the game is much more enjoyable. And you have to praise Rob Manfred, even if you don't like Rob Manfred, because with obviously the considerable assistance from Theo Epstein was the one who came up with all these recommendations. But still, Manfred had been obsessed with the idea of quickening the game, putting more action in. How can you make it more enjoyable for the fans? Those were sincere objectives of Manfred. And to not acknowledge that would be incredibly petty. It doesn't mean you have to say, oh, no, now I love him. No, you don't have to. Just give him just give him the praise that he deserves for taking the lead on this. According to StatCast, so you're wondering, all right, what about the pitch clock? I almost said shot clock. What about the pitch clock? And again, this is early, but according to StatCast, here's the average time between pitches within a single at-bat. So it doesn't count the final pitch of one at-bat and the first pitch of the next at-bat. You know what I mean? Because obviously it takes within the same at-bat, here's the average time between pitches. In 2019, it was 23 seconds. In 2021, it was 23.7 seconds. In 2022, it was 23.1 seconds. So it's been in 23 seconds plus since 2019, between 2019 and 2022. This season so far, average time between pitches in the same at bat, 18.6 seconds. So how many guys? I wonder what the average number of plate appearances there are in a game. But there's a lot when it goes up when it counts over 162 games with two teams in the game, and I just so it may not seem like much, those 5 seconds that they've shaved off between pitches in the same at bat, but just multiply that over 162 games, 30 teams, how many innings.
Mm-hmm. It's going to make a difference, yeah.
Yeah, and it is making a difference because we've seen the average game time shaved off to nearly 30 minutes so far. And you just mentioned you had that 1 hour and 57 minute game last night. I felt like I saw that and I felt like, man, this is kind of like when I was a kid and I'm watching Jim Palmer pitch against like Jim Cott.
Oh, boy.
Take the ball and go, right?
Yes.
Take the ball and go. In fact, I got to look up something now. So,
well, wait.
Go ahead, talk.
One of the things that you mentioned yesterday when you were going through your article and some of the numbers you had, you mentioned that the slugging percentage is up right now, and it's through the first little bit here. And I think there's a reason why is because pitchers, and I've seen this with some of the Cardinal pitchers, especially when they were like Hicks and Helsley were struggling. They don't have the ability, and this is something they're all going to have to go through and relearn or figure it out. Otherwise, they're not going to be in baseball much longer. But they don't have that ability to go step off, walk around, take a couple breaths, and reset themselves. I think pitchers are going to have to learn how to get through that when they're not throwing well and they can't find it. And we've had enough instances to watch this Cardinal rotation not be able to throw strikes and find the strike zone. In the games that I've been watching, when a guy is scuffling, we would always see a guy go back, he rubbed the baseball, walk behind the mound, get the rosin bag, and it would drive you nuts after a while. They don't have that opportunity right now. Let's just get it and keep throwing and see if you can figure it out. And I think that has obviously helped the offense because there's more bad pitches being thrown quicker, and the pitchers haven't been able to adjust when they don't have it. Now, when they've got it and it's going, and we saw it with like Alcantara in that Twins game last night, it's just get it and throw. You're like, whoa, okay. They're just getting it and throw it, and they know what they want to do. It works really well. It's a brisk-paced game. But when they don't have it, they really have had trouble, most of them, trying to get themselves on track, and they can't get it done right now because they don't have that mechanism of how they used to do it, is slow the game down. Jeff Suppan was the worst at it in terms of slowing a game down, but that's what he always talked about. When things get a little crazy, I'm stepping off, I'm going to take a breath until I can find it. They don't have that opportunity now, so I think when you gave that number of slug going up, I think it will continue to see that until they kind of level this thing off a little bit from the pitching side.
Yeah, and I can add to that with some updated numbers if I can ever get my laptop to work. But the Cardinals, by the way, can I circle back?
Sure, please do.
This will, particularly the old school fans. I know Jim Hewer wasn't of age then, I don't think. 1966. Were you born yet?
No, I wasn't around yet. No.
Okay, but I know you appreciate it anyway.
Oh, yeah. Dodgers won that year, I think.
No, how dare you? How dare you? The baby birds swept the Dodgers.
I know they did. I had to throw that out there at you.
So I watched this game with my dad, and I must say I didn't fully appreciate what I was watching because I was only, I think I was 6, about to become, I think I was 7 years old, right? But I sat there and watched the black and white TV, and there was a pitching matchup in Game 2 featuring 20-year-old Jim Palmer against the legend that was Sandy Koufax, and what turned out to be the final game he ever pitched, Sandy Koufax. He retired after the World Series. So those two went at it, and Koufax did give up some hits and 4 runs, but only 1 earned. Palmer was incredible. 20 years old, and you outpitched Sandy Koufax. But anyway, that game between the Dodgers and the Orioles at Dodger Stadium, 2 hours and 26 minutes. Right?
Yeah. Wow.
I know. But, this stuff is great. And, the stolen bases continue to go up, and there's more singles. The home run rate is soaring. And I did explain this thing that I wrote. I did explain, what is home runs and what does all this have to do with the pitch clock or whatever? I mean, you explained a lot of it. These pitchers can't catch their breath. They can't walk around the mound, recenter themselves or whatever. And they got to feel rushed, even though all of them have done a really good job so far in, kind of recalibrating, if that's the term,
Yeah.
But that's still, it doesn't mean that they don't feel rushed. They don't feel pressure. They're not looking at the clock and thinking, let's go, which kind of distracts them a little. And they can't get lost in their own thoughts about, okay, what do I need to do here? They can't do it. It's like catch the ball, maybe take a deep breath or two and go. That's all the time you have. So I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that it's just put a lot on them to work faster than they're used to, and maybe this will level off as the season gets deeper, but I find it really, really interesting. Okay, let me throw a couple updated stats because I love this stuff. Stolen bases. Through Tuesday, MLB teams have stolen 101 bases in 123 attempts, 83%. But here's the key. Here's the stat that jumps out at me. The Athletic noted this. Through the first 5 days of the 2022 season, through the first 5 days of 2022, there are only 57 stolen base attempts. You know what it was this year, the first 5 days? 100 attempts.
Wow.
Think about that, right?
Huge difference.
Now, I agree with my buddy Jim Hewer. I don't want to see it become a travesty where it becomes too easy to steal. I don't want to, do away with all this, but I'm just saying, if you make it too easy for runners to steal a bag, then you're sort of defeating the whole concept of, man, I wonder if Contreras can throw this guy out. This is going to be exciting. When you're not throwing guys out, I mean, it's just, well, like I said, it sort of becomes a travesty. Now, maybe fans of other teams used to say that about Whitey Herzog's guys, but that was just pure entertainment. And they didn't need any special rules put in to steal all those bases. That was the beauty of it. It came naturally. But I don't want stolen bases to become gratuitous. I want them to be something you really got to work on and earn. So that's one thought I had.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
All right, last April, batting average 231. This April, 250 so far, up 19 points. On-base percentage from last April to this April, comparison to the first opening month, to each opening month. On-base percentage up 16 points. Slugging percentage, it was 369 first month last year. So far this year, 413. That's a pretty big increase. OPS last April compared to this April, 676 last April, 736 this April. That's we're talking about a 60-point increase. Runs per game up. It's about 4.6 runs so far. I didn't have the breakdown for April last year, but last year overall, teams scored about 4.28 runs. So the scoring's way up. Here's one that I didn't talk about yesterday. I wanted to mention this. How about the defensive shifts and how they are affecting left-handed batters who pull the ball, and we all know that, right?
Yes.
Well, last season, left-handed hitters in the first month had a 229 average, 276 average on balls in play. So far this year, left-handed batters, 246. That's 17 points higher. And with an average on batted balls in play up by 14 points. So left-handed batters are getting more hits than they did comparatively last season to this point. Now, that could change, right? And here are the updated home run stats, which I think really is glaring to me. Because Manfred and Epstein, to me, are getting the best of both worlds because they have stimulated the action, the movement, the motion, the playmaking, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been really refreshing, and it's been more entertaining. But good home run hitters are still hitting home runs. And in the context of the overall game and how it's played, I got no problems with home runs and big guys who hit ball hard and far, because it was becoming tedious because with so many teams it seems like that's all they could do. Well, that's not the case, even though the home runs are flying, but they're part of a mix that makes for a more entertaining style of play. So, opening month of 2022, Major League hitters homered every 27.6 at-bats. The first month this season so far. They're cranking a homer every I had these backwards. I better make a correction. Let me start again. Sorry, I apologize. In the first month of last season, they were hitting a home run every 36.3 at-bats. First month this season, they're hitting a home run every 27.6 at-bats. That's a big difference.
Ooh.
Now add that up over time, right?
Yeah, that's significant. I didn't notice that as much in the games.
You know why?
Although
because
it's Cardinal pitching against the Braves, you would say, yeah.
But you know why? And I think this really does explain it. It's sort of like what I talked about a moment ago. I mean, when the problem with stand-around baseball, and the reason so many people, including baseball lovers such as Jim Hewer and Bernie Miklasz, is that you get a point where it just becomes flat-out boring, where you just see teams standing around waiting for some guy to hit a home run, and that's if they don't, then you're going to lose. Stolen bases, no. Guys trying to run from first to third, second to home, first to home, all that stuff, no. A lot of station-to-station stuff. Cardinals were an exception. But when you have all this action and all these runners on the move, right, and just the tempo of the game. Just it's such a brisk pace. You just don't notice home runs as much because they're being delivered as part of a refreshened mix that has all aspects of offensive baseball, including a lower strikeout rate this season. And you're not as aware of home runs maybe because you just don't see teams doing nothing but stand around and make a little prayer that their guy's going to hit a home run, and that's it. I think that's what it is. There's so much other stuff going on. The home runs are there more than they were a year ago at this time, but they're part of a general improvement and diversity of offense in Major League Baseball. They fit. They're not the show. They fit into a larger show.
It would make sense. It would definitely make sense. And that just shocks me that it was that high. Because I have watched a lot of different games in the first 5-6 games for most clubs, and I never really jumped out at me as like, oh my gosh, everything's a home run. So that's an interesting number. I'm glad you put it out there. Now, the stolen base thing, I'm still waiting to see. But like if we go to Milwaukee this week, Bernie, and Rowdy Tellez has 2 stolen bases, we may have to start talking about something's got to be done.
Yeah, you got a point there. I think you got a point there.